get a brick right now, yeah. I can call Diego right now. We can send the peso right out, yeah. We gon' get the queso right now, yeah. We the Freemasons right now. Ain't talking money, quiet down. Got the molly on me and never down it right now. There's plenty fish in the sea with some piranhas right now. Just hit us if you need it, we got it on us right now.
I want to talk about the full story of you being introduced to marijuana.
Okay.
First time you smoked, you got high. I want to know all the way to the Fed case, like the whole story, right? The whole Fed. And then I want to know, like, you got arrested 2 times for marijuana, 3 times for marijuana. I'm wondering why you didn't stop after the first time. Like, I'm just kind of wondering why. I heard like when you got arrested the first time, the second time y'all just moved houses, and
that's another misconception, but I'll clear all that up.
Okay, that's what I thought. So
the first time I'd ever smoked weed, it wasn't until I was like a senior year in high school, and I was told all my life weed is bad for you. Weed is bad for you. It's gonna ruin your brain. Blah 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 blah.
That's what I've been told.
So I smoked a little bit of weed with my buddies, and I became high, and it was the fucking greatest feeling of my entire life. I was like, these people have been lying to me from jump. So, long story short, the guy I was rapping with at the time, he could get some pounds from this guy who would bring him in from Mexico, and it was just regular old dirt weed. And every once in a blue moon, his buddy who grew weed indoors in a small bedroom, he would come down with some hydroponic shit, some super skunk. And that's when I got introduced to super skunk, to hydroponic, to exotic type weed. Okay. And what I would do is, the first time I'd ever messed with marijuana was my buddy came to me and was like, hey, I got a way for us to make some money. I know a guy, he's gonna sell us a quarter pound for $100. Would you be interested in going in on a quarter pound of dirt weed for $100? So I was like, all right, cool. We split it 50-50. It cost me $50. I took my 2 ounces, made a couple phone calls, and I had sold all my weed in like 8 minutes. I sold 8 quarters. I was good. Here I have, $160 in my pocket. It just cost me $50. I made $110 in 10 minutes. Called my buddy up. I was like, hey, you still got those 2 ounces? Let me get them back from you. He was like, cool, because I can't sell it. So from right then and there, I knew I could sell weed. So I started selling weed here and there to a couple people, and that's where the weed business kind of came. And every once in a while, this buddy of ours that grew the exotic stuff, he would come down with the stuff, and I'd buy everything that he had, and then I'd sell it for $25 a gram. And I'd end up making
when was that? What year?
This was probably 98, 97.
Okay, so that was
prices
were much higher back then.
Nobody had access to hydroponic. Well, hydroponic
that's what I heard, but I don't know if that's true.
Actually comes from the Egyptians, where they would grow water they would grow plants with water, and they used a wicking system. So the plant would have a wick at the bottom of it that'd go into a reservoir, and that'd be considered hydroponic.
Oh, okay.
But so from an early point, I started, slinging weed. I'd buy the guy's stuff out every time, and I would sell it for $25 a gram, make some bread. Well, one day he gives me a phone call saying, hey man, I messed up at work. I dropped some ecstasy in the coffee maker, and the cops are up here, and the receptionists have drank the coffee by accident. So he calls me up and he's like, bro, you gotta go to my house. You gotta clean out everything out of my house. I'm like, okay. Like, you mean cut down all the plants? And then he's like, man, get rid of everything. So I go cut it all down. I was
this
like,
was
hey,
your brother at the time?
No. This is just a buddy that I had.
Oh, okay.
And I'll tell you a story about that coming up too. So so I go cut down everything, and I like, all right, what do you want me to do with it? He was like, man, just keep it. You can have it. And that was my real entry.
That's a come up right there.
That was the true come up. What I did is I took the weed and I put it in my garage and waited for it to dry. About a week later, I got the weed down, and the neighborhood cats had come into the garage and pissed on it.
Oh, shit.
No problem. What do? This is cat piss. And that's
what you called it?
That's exactly what we called it. So it was actually super skunk that the cats had peed on, so it smelled like skunk. But it was actually some cat piss.
Skunk cat piss.
So people were smoking some cat piss. But so that's how I initially got on to selling, large amounts of, marijuana. But the first time I ever brought marijuana home was, like I said, I brought home a couple ounces, and I told my brother what I was doing with it, and he didn't believe me. He told me to flush it down the toilet. So I flush it down the toilet. The next day comes back and he finds it again.
Isn't this the brother who told you to smoke weed when you were at the studio or
Right.
smoke fry at the studio?
Right.
Okay.
So because we weren't into that culture, we weren't into doing drugs. That wasn't us, you know. So when I told him I was making money on it, the second time he was like, "All right, how much money are you making on it?" And that's when his business mind kind of took over.
Yeah.
So through all that process, I had known this guy who grew weed, and he basically taught me how to grow weed. So fast forward a little bit, it's around 2006, 2007, and you know I've been dibbling, dabbling, have a little grow set up at my house, and I get a royalty check from a record company for about $50,000, and
that's nice. Comes in the mail.
Well, if you think about it, our checks were $500,000, 200,000.
You know when these checks are coming, or they're just unexpected? You open the mail, you're like, damn.
Every quarter they send you a check.
Okay, all right, because
so things are good.
That'd be messing up my blood pressure.
Things are good for a while, and then all of a sudden the last check gets here, and you know it's gonna be your last check, the last decent check for a hot minute. So my brother and I was like, hey, listen, why don't we just get a house and grow from there? So that's when I got my first grow house, and on that.
So y'all controlled manufacturing, the selling, like all that.
Everything.
Y'all controlled.
Everything.
See, that's the thing. Like people don't realize about marijuana is. It's got such a profit margin because you can control if you grow it, it's such a good profit margin because you control everything from there.
And at the time,
you're the wholesaler.
At the time, I was selling quarter pounds for $1,400 a piece, so I was making $5,600 a pound.
Oh wow.
My brother was selling them for $4,000 a pound wholesale.
Wow.
So even at that time, we were making good money. But the whole thing is that on our first little grow house, we were making about $300,000 a year.
Okay.
But the problem with that one grow house is that people don't understand it takes 99 days for you to come up with the product.
Yeah.
And then you're out of weed for 99 days.
Yeah.
So in order to get rid of that problem, you have to have one of those drop every week. So you have to have a minimum of 12 grow houses to get 20 to 30 pounds.
So y'all do all the calculations and everything and get it all right? Okay, that's cool.
So while house number 1 is in week 1, right, we're setting up house number 2 and so forth and so on. So that every week we got 20 or 30 pounds.
And did y'all keep these like close together, or are they all spread out?
They're all spread out, and
doesn't that cause problems for the driving around, or like?
Well, what happens is, like, let's say you came to me like, hey, listen, man, I got some medical bills. I got a house, but I can't fucking do anything. I need to make some bread. We'd become 50-50 partners, so you would stay there and grow it and maintain it.
Okay.
I would teach you how to do it, so you would maintain it. Then once it became ready, I would take it down, take it to my brother. He would sell it, and then we'd bring you back the cash.
Okay.
So, but in the meantime, we paid for all your bills. We paid for it. So we were 50-50 partners.
Okay.
You provided the work. I provided the know-how and all the equipment.
Their sweat equity, their sweat labor.
Exactly. So we're 50-50.
Yeah, okay,
so,
I got it.
So even though I had 21 grow houses, I was only making, it was like I only had 11 and a half grow houses, which is still okay.
I remember like going around the clubs and everything. You heard. Toe Down got the good stuff. Like Toe Down was the guy. You knew Toe Down had it. Like everybody was like Toe Down had it. Toe Down had it. And I'm just wondering, like, did you know that? Like, did you know your reputation was out there like that?
Yeah.
Like,
I would pull up to the club, and when I got out of the VIP, the cops would escort me in, and they would announce to everybody in the club, Toe Down's got weed. Now, keep in mind, these are
cops would?
These are HPD off-duty officers that work at the club in the parking lot. So when even the police know your reputation.
Shout out to HPD.
So there would be times where it'd be like, okay, I'm a little bit too deep in the game at this point, But having the best weed went along with everything else that I did to that degree, the music, the lifestyle, everything else like that. Mm-hmm. So it only became a problem when people started snitching on you. And they'd be like, yeah, well, where'd you get this one? Well, I got it from the best weed guy I know. And that's what it was. But also,
so is that how y'all got busted? Was the snitches, or I thought it was undercovers?
It was all snitches. It was all snitches.
There was no undercovers, because that's what they said on the news.
There was no
they said
undercovers involved. What had happened from the very start, my ex-fiance, she goes and gets married 6 months after we break up. She pillows talks to her her then husband, who was smoking crack in a school zone, who is cheating on her, and says, hey, listen, I got a crack case. Well, the girl he's cheating on her with is actually the detective's mistress, and that's
Jesus
how the
Christ.
HPD got involved in that situation.
It's like a movie, man.
Beyond a movie.
You need a movie. That's crazy.
So that was
crazy.
That was the first incident. The second incident came about with this guy. He owed me some money, long story short, I tell the guy, hey, listen, I've been busted for weed. I'm not growing weed anymore, which I wasn't at that time. I might have been consulting, but I wasn't growing into my house, you know? And that's where the miscommunication between my brother's house and my house. We were both growing weed at the same time. Mine just got popped. We didn't move the stuff. His had been growing. It had been going on.
Yeah, because I mean, like you said, you had multiple houses, so you weren't moving it.
And let's not get anything confused at all. You know, if you're making allegedly, you know, $3 to $10 million a year on weed, you're not just a small time nickel and dime where you can, okay, we're gonna pack up and leave now. No, you have, you know, a team of electricians, a team of plumbers. You have all these guys that depend on you to make a living.
Yeah.
Not including the guys you're in business with.
Okay.
So to just pack up and quit was just not going to happen.
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, if I got to pay $125,000 in lawyer fees as part of doing business, that's just a...
But aren't the cops, after the first time you get arrested, aren't the cops following you, watching you, survey? Like, aren't they around you more?
You would suspect that, but cases don't get solved by police. Cases get solved by snitches.
Okay.
That's just the way the world works. So they weren't following me. What had happened is I got snitched off. They investigated. They found something. The second time, the same thing happened. I went to go pick up some money from a guy who said, hey, I know Toe Down, he's got the best weed. When I told him I didn't have any weed and he paid the bill, I called my brother. I was like, hey, listen, he paid his tab. He wants a quarter pound. If you want to go drop him off a quarter pound, go drop him off. He snitches out my brother. That's how my brother's house gets.
See, that's the problem with having the good product is your name is going to get out there.
It's going to get out there.
It's going to get out
Somebody
there.
told me in prison that if you want to sell dope when you get out, you got to walk around with a gun in a bag, because everybody you sell that bag to, you're going to have to kill so your name doesn't get back out there. And that was just something that's going around in prison that, listen, if you have a name and it goes along with good dope, it's only a matter of time before you get ratted out.
Yeah.
You know, but again, when you're making so much money, it doesn't even matter. You know, I never thought in my wildest dream that I'd do 5 years behind some weed. I thought the most I'd ever have to do is maybe a year, 2, 3 years at the most.
And you cool with, like, you...
Hell yeah, I'm cool with that.
So, like...
All day long, sign me up. I mean, I'm I'm willing to do 3 years for a couple $1 million. What
that
are you
teaches
talking
people
about?
You gotta know the consequences before you get into what you're doing. So
it's always about that.
Know your consequences and be ready to accept them when you get popped, because then you won't snitch. You just know your consequences and you accept them and it's done and it's over. But
see, most people aren't that ahead in the game.
Yeah.
What usually happens is the reason I'm snitching on is one or two reasons. I don't like you, or B, I got myself in a situation where I can't handle it.
Yeah.
So I always knew that at the end of the day that I'd be doing some time.
Yeah.
But so my thing is I'm gonna try and make as much money as I possibly can before I get locked up.
So were y'all investing that money a lot, like in? Like, what was your investments? Like, what was your investments besides?
There comes a time where, you know, cash is cash, which becomes a problem.
Yeah.
So you can only buy so many houses and cars and everything else before it becomes a problem.
Yep.
So at some point you got to ask yourself, well, if I pay off this house in cash, right, and the police come and they take the house and the cops just own the house. But if I have the cash, right, and the police come, they're not going to find the cash.
Yeah.
And the house is still owned by the bank, so let them fight over the bank. Let them fight with the bank over the house.
Yeah.
You know? So that was one of the things that I knew early on, that, hey, listen, I knew what I was getting myself into. Instead of just giving the cops free money, that I'm going to burn it up. You're not going to find it.
Okay.
As long as I got something going. I mean, there's times where, you know, there'd be $200,000 in cash, and I'd go grab a pocket full of money, and I'd tell my friends, hey, we're not coming home till it's spent. And we'd come home, and there'd still be pockets. You just couldn't spend it all.
I want to be your friend. I wanted to be your friend back then.
Anything, like, you want to go to LA for the weekend, it'd be $50,000. Boom, no problem. It was whatever you wanted. It was a life of so much that.
And do you think that gave you fake happiness or like real happiness? Or what?
Without a doubt.
Fake.
Because the only thing that can provide you with genuine happiness is God.
Yeah.
Plain and simple.
Okay.
And everything else is just something to try to fill up that hole in your heart. And that's what it was.
I can get a brick right now, yeah. I can call Diego right now. We can send the peso right out, yeah. We gon' get the queso right now, yeah. We the Freemasons right now. Ain't talking money, quiet down. Got the molly on me and never down it right now. There's plenty fish in the sea with some piranhas right now. Just hit us if you need it, we got it on us right now. But I fuck her like a lover. I was fighting, but we kiss under the cover. And baby, I don't ever play around with you. Soon as we get together, you know what's going down. She say she love when I'm up in it. That them other niggas ain't with it. She like, what's your favorite position? I'm like, baby, every position. And I love when you wash the dishes. Not because you washing the dishes, it's because them little shorts you be wearing when you walk around in the kitchen, yeah.